Hello guys, welcome to the channel. In today's video we'll talk about the Maverick exchange, what constitutes the Maverick exchange, and why this exchange is one of the best out there. So let's get to our notes. So the first thing you have to understand is that Maverick is an AMM. So we'll get to what AMM are. Now, there are a lot of crypto assets, hundreds of them and all that, packed in one place. So if a buyer, for example, that has USD Theta or USDC or whatever, wants to get maybe the engine token, and there's a seller who is willing to sell, they will meet in a place called the market. So like I said, yeah, the market is a place where buyers meet sellers, right? Now there are different kind of markets. We have centralized markets, like we have before decentralized protocols came on board, and many of them use order books or market makers. Now, these guys are inefficient, third parties, they require more fees and all that. And that is where AMM comes from. So we're talking about the Maverick guys. So how does an AMM work? So first there is the product release. So you design the AMM, and what it does is that it's a project that helps with the permissionless creation of liquidity. So for example, this asset and this asset can be put in a pool, and then you swap. So you create a pool, user earn fees for providing liquidity. Now there is liquidity from which you can trade from, and then you can do your swapping. Now this is what liquidity is like. So there is the user, for example, comes and is asking for something. Now if people, assuming all these are tokens, so if people don't put all this inside this liquidity, let's say liquidity was, then there will be nothing to sell to this guy when he comes asking. So that's where the AMM liquidity comes in. Okay, so let's talk about some of the pros and the cons. One of the good thing about this is that there's no need for third parties. So there's low trading fees, because if you are using market makers have their own fees. They will charge. The exchange itself has its own fees and all that, so there will be more fees. But in this case, there's low fees because it's a product that is running on the blockchain. So you only need to pay for gas, and the gas most of the times is dependent on the underlying blockchains. And with the deployment of layer 2s and other scale solutions, it's becoming cheaper. Then there's more liquidity as more people add to it. Now, but many of them are problems. Some of them could be scams. You could be robbed. There are bugs, especially with smart contracts. The US of many of them are terrible. You need to be taught how to use it. There is slippage in many of these cases, price slippage, and then for traders, and then impermanent loss for those who pull liquidity. And then there are fewer assets to trade on these platforms, but they are getting better over time. So let's talk about the LP. So LP, one of the problems is that many of them are concentrated currently, and what the Maverick exchange does is automatic liquidity pools. So liquidity pools that are dynamic. You do rebalancing according to the price in the market. So with that, you have things like lower slippage and lower impermanent loss. Now let's go to explain this concentrated liquidity. So let's talk about the evolution of AMM so far. So the first forms of AMM that came on board were the constant product AMM. So what that means is that you just have to pull tokens. The engine token, maybe you pull it against USDC or some base assets. So most of these exchanges uses a stable currency like DAI, USDC, USDT, or they may use an asset like Rapid Ethereum. I think those are the 4 pairs. So they can pay them against any of these 4 pairs, and then you can be trading. So it was a constant product token. So you just have to define, okay, I have X amount of USDC and I have Y amount of let's say engine token. You put them together and you go to sleep. Now, but there were some inefficiency about that. We had more price slippage. There was permanent loss and all that. So that brought the evolution of AMMs to concentrated liquidity. So they did a study and they discovered that assuming users, for example, say we want to, those who provide liquidity, we want to put a price range. We're providing our liquidity from, let's say, price A to price B or price C. If it goes within this range, then use our assets. If not, don't use our assets. Now, when you use the constant product, you get affected by impermanent loss at every time. At this when it does not go in your favor, and then you also get affected by the positive side of the network, which is network fees. But when you define concentrated liquidity, this is a pool, for example, and assets. Different people add different things to the pool. So somebody can say, I want to take on more risk. I want to pull my token from, let's say, this point all the way to this point. Another person just have the stomach from point A, what is price, which is the minimum price, up to this maximum price. Another person can say, I'm not willing to go for A. I'm going from this to, let's say, this. So when people define this, it means that as the price moves, so in this case, for this person, if the price is from A and then it goes to B, his liquidity will be utilized. Now, if it also jumps to C, his liquidity position will also be utilized. But when it leaves this domain, and maybe it's from this point to this point, his liquidity is not available to the network because the network does not see that he has liquidity. So he will be adjudged to have zero liquidity on the network. So that means he will have zero exposure to the fees because he's not participating at that time, and also you have zero exposure to impermanent loss. So that was a problem. Now we can see as price moves out of concentration areas, this leads to misallocation, like I talked before, and then decreased efficiency. So let's talk about the evolution now with what Maverick is bringing. Talk about things like dynamic liquidity pooling. So what that means is you have a system where you define by different staking models. You can define and say, I want it static. So what that means is that when that price is moving sideways, your stop stays in one place. You can decide to go the left. So when the beans move left as price decreases and do not move when the price increases. So depending on how you want to move, you can say, okay, move my liquidity up when the price is going up, or move my liquidity down when the price is going down, or you can say move it both ways. I want to be part of both ways when it's, or when the price is going sideways, please don't move my liquidity, which is the static part. So you will define each of these parameters have their own benefits and then disadvantage and all that. So that is the dynamic liquidity. So it's no more in one range, like this is from this, and then this is to this, and then this is from there. In this dynamic range case, it's dynamic by its name. So it can move from here to here, depending on how you set it. It can move and all that. Now, what is the issue with that? Now, there is custom LP distributions. That is one thing. Another thing again, there is low LP maintenance, liquidity pool maintenance, and then there's increased efficiency because if you're talking about concentrated liquidity, if your price, let's take for example this guy, if it moves, let's say from here all the way to this place, you are still, there is efficiency. Your stuff are experiencing efficiency. But if it moves up here, there's no efficiency. So in this case, there's more efficiency because depending on how you set it, if it touches here, your tokens are used. If it touches here and all that. And then in this case for consistent liquidity, you may come and check back and say, oh, what's happening to my liquidity tokens? Nobody's using them, and no, I'm not making profit from it. And you can now decide to say, okay, let me unstake and adjust my position. You are using, you spend time, then you're spending money to unstake, which is gas, and then you have to spend another extra money to change the position and say, okay, initially I was from here to here. Now I want to move from here to here. So first, you have to spend gas to remove this position, and then another gas to get this position, right? So, but for this case, there is none of such. So who should use Maverick? LPs. As I have explained, they get more capital efficiency, they spend less time on gas. This thing is dynamic, it does auto rebalancing by itself. Traders with that, there's little or low price slippage and all that. And then treasuries can also use this thing effectively and get reward. So there's a host of partners. I have the advanced blockchains that have invested in this project, Pantera, and many others. So I will link you to the website. It's like every other AMM. You can easily pull tokens, you can easily swap tokens, and monitor your portfolio. So with that, thank you and bye.